So in this video, I'm going to open up this pre-release box, show you what's inside. We're going to go through the packs, and I'm going to go through my process for building a deck for a pre-release. This is a sealed event that they call it, where you're not drafting and switching cards with other players. You are building a deck of cards from the sealed product, and it's just the cards that you open yourself. So let's open this up. And this is also going to have everything you need to play if you've never played before. So if you are brand new, you can jump in on any of these set releases with a pre-release kit, and you will have all of these tokens, the counters, and you'll have a little guide for building a deck, kind of what the requirements are. And you get a deck box, as well as the packs of cards themselves. And in the deck box, you will find a divider, if you want it. Each one is going to have the kind of key art for the set. And then in the pack, you're going to find the two special leaders. So you can use these two leaders or leaders that you open in the packs to build your deck. Boba Fett and Han Solo. I love that these are hyperspace variants. Here is the front as well. These are also the same leaders that are going to be for the Spotlight decks, which used to be the two-player starter kits. So you don't need to necessarily buy those Spotlight decks if you're not interested in the cards, but if you're just interested in the leaders, you can get them in a pre-release kit with some packs. So I'm going to set the leaders off to the side over there, and let's start busting open these packs. Now, for pre-releases, what I do is I generally take just a quick look through the cards, and then I start laying them out based on the aspect. I am so excited to get a Rio Durant. I really wanted one of these, actually. I think it's really a cool leader. So I'll put the leaders up here, and the bases next to that as well. So just a quick look through the packs here. Go through these pretty quick. Mostly just to see if there's anything that catches my eye. Some pilots, BB-8, fantastic. We got some air units. Ooh, Sabine's Masterpiece. Really fun card. Alright. We're just going to set them off to the side. I usually actually go through all of the packs and then I organize them, but I lay out the leaders and bases as I go, just so they are separated. We got a Luke. So far we have a decent mix here already of some colors. Definitely kind of need some Vigilance and Command. We got a Command base though, so we have the Vigilance and Command bases. Alright, let's go through this pack. Got Sentinel shielded units, which are pretty good in sealed formats. Mist Hunter. Oh my goodness, Unity of Purpose. We got a legendary. It is a double aspect card, however, which is much more difficult to use in sealed events. Especially at a 6 cost to start before you pay any aspect cost. And we got a special base and a foil Leia. So I'm actually going to set this base aside. Poe hyperspace variant, and a red base. At this point, I'm just kind of glancing through and looking at what units. We're getting some ground, we're getting some space, we're getting some events. So we're getting a good mix of stuff. All right, we got a major Von Reg. We do have quite a bit of aggression going on in our leaders. Get a cheap event. Got some token creation. Just more space units. More pilots. Ooh, and a foil hyperspace Mandalorian pilot. That's pretty sweet. I love it. So piloting with these pilots, definitely the kind of basis of this set here with Jump to Lightspeed. Each set kind of has its own special keyword or general kind of mechanic. Lots of space units. Koyagrin turn might be something we use with all of these aggression tools. Cat and mouse. Exhausting an enemy unit, also something that is very interesting in sealed specifically, because you have such a limited card pool. You're not able to generally have as much like removal, exhaust tools, and cards that kind of interact with your opponent's stuff like this. So this might be something that we consider as well. All right, on to the last pack. Another Rio. And another Vigilance base. Lots of space units. More potential for creating tokens. Another upgrade that is not a pilot. So we could look at that potentially. Wow, another legendary. The Starhawk. This one a little bit expensive. I feel like in sealed, especially with ambush mechanics in particular, the game can go pretty quickly, but we haven't gotten a lot of ambush, not nearly as many ambush as in like set 1 and 2. So the games might not go quite as fast, but this is a much higher costed card. So this could be something that we do slot in, but we are going to take a look at the cost of everything in the deck when we put it together. All right. So let's split everything up per aspect here. and then we'll take a look at what we have. All right, so once you have everything organized, I kind of do it with the neutral non-aspect cards up in the corner. I go the 4 aspects across, and then heroism and villainy down the sides, and then just kind of line them up and make a kind of grid. Then we can kind of see what cards we have the most of, and we can look at what we have the least amount of, and we might want to actually avoid the least amount of cards. So right off the bat, I see we don't have a lot of, we only have a few heroism standalone cards. So that might be something that we want to actually avoid at this point in our leader selection. We do need to build our deck that is going to consist of our leader, a base, and 30 cards minimum for our actual deck that we will shuffle and draw from. So instantly what draws my eye are the cunning and command cards, yellow and green. Those stacks are just the largest there, so we can take a look at what we have. If you have a leader in mind that you like as well, you might be drawn to that, and then you can kind of build your deck based around that. Personally, I really like Rio, so I might actually look at that, and off the bat, knowing that we have quite a few cunning cards, and we do have some cunning villainy cards, we can kind of start with that as well. There's quite a few space units, so that works quite well with Rio and his action. And one thing that I really like about Rio is both his just base unit and the piloting stats are the same. That's not the case with all of the piloting cards, so personally really like that effect as well, that they are both 3/5. So taking a look at this, I am drawn to Rio and my stack of cunning cards there. Now I can take a look and see what all I have in cunning. I know that there is one double aspect card, so that's probably not something that we want to do unless I actually have just so many cunning cards that we can build like an entire deck out of cunning. We're going to want to mix, and likely you will be playing 2 of the aspects plus heroism or villainy because of the card pool and how limited it is. So I can see here we do have some ground units, we've got some space units. The Mandalorian is that double aspect card that I mentioned that we opened. So if I don't have double cunning, I'm going to have to pay 7 for the Mandalorian, which doesn't feel quite as good. But when you play it as an upgrade, you get to exhaust an enemy unit in this arena. So, or you can exhaust up to 2 ground units if you play it as a unit, which, as I mentioned already, being able to exhaust and kind of have some of these tools to be able to answer your opponent's stuff is very, very limited in these sealed events. So this might be something that we do want to consider, even though we probably will have to pay 7 for it, which does feel a little bit slow. I'm also seeing a kind of variety of costs of these cards. We have some cheap things here, including a cheap space unit, which is fantastic. So I really like this, and I think we're just going to set all of these aside and kind of go through those after we decide which other aspect we're going to go with. I'm leaning towards probably command, but we could look at these vigilance cards as well. But we do have a decent amount of command cards here. Some more space units. We have events, more space units, which work great with Rio. Again, more space units. We can potentially use all wings report in to create some more space units even. And since we are looking at something potentially pretty space heavy, air superiority could be pretty interesting as well. So I do kind of like this. We can glance at what we have here for vigilance as well. Do have some extra pilots, some ground units, more ground units than space units. And with Rio, I do kind of think we want to go space. We do have a few space units here in the vigilance and villainy, but if we look at the cost, these do get a little bit expensive. So combined with some of the expensive cards that we already had, maybe we don't want to do this, and maybe we do just want to go for our command cards here. And if that's the case, then we want to make sure that we have a command base. Now, even if you don't open them, any like basic base you can use from your local game store where you are playing the event. So they'll have those for you. So I think in this case, I'm going to look at playing Rio, and we're going to go with a green base. And we want to count our cards. So we have 14 cunning cards right off the bat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 additional for command. And then we can look at the dual aspect kind of cards as well. So we do have a few here that we can use in the command villainy. We can also look at the cunning villainy. So we do have a few more cheap space units there, which I like a lot. And in Debt to Crimson Dawn, again, more kind of tools to mess with what our opponent is trying to do. So I like these, and we can take a look at how many more we have here. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we have over our 30, so we can cut this down by a couple of cards. Immediately here, I'm probably just going to take out Unity of Purpose because it is this double command aspect card, and because we only have one command aspect, that's going to be 8 cost to actually play that, and that's pretty chunky. I don't want to end up paying that. So we're going to set this aside. So 32 cards currently, so I could cut a couple of these down as well. What I want to do is kind of take a look at the cost and kind of see what the curve of our deck is going to look like. So we've got some 3s and 2s. Here's a 5, 1, 5, some 4s, more 3s, 2s, another 5. Timely reinforcements, actually pretty interesting if we want to create more X-Wing tokens. We've got a 6 cost here, but it does have ambush. It is a vehicle, which is something we're going to want to think about with our couple of pilots as well. A second light cruiser. If I had to pick 2 cards to take out of here, I might look at probably removing the timely reinforcements and potentially one of these all wings report in, just because I feel like we already have a lot of space units. I don't think we need to be exhausting our own space units right now to make X-Wings, so I think we can keep one, and the other option might be removing one of these light cruisers. But one thing when you are building these limited decks is, again, the curve, and we do actually have a decent amount of kind of early-ish mid-game stuff, so I kind of like having a few bigger options for the later game if these games do go a little bit slower. Now, the other thing to consider would be how many ground units we have, because we do have a lot of space units, but we can also play some of these pilots as ground units. So you can see like the Wingman Victor 2 is a ground unit, or the pilot upgrade. So we can play that as a ground unit. We do have a few other ground units in here as well. But that would be the other consideration, is looking at those. We also do have a few, not very many, but we have a handful of these neutral cards. So if we want to slot in a couple of these space units here, we can do that as well. Like flanking Fang Fighter might be an option, because we do have some other fighter units. And we can play all three of these swarming vulture droids that get +1, +0 for each other swarming droid. But they're just a cheap space unit. But honestly, I kind of feel like we actually do have a lot of other space units, so I'm actually inclined to just ignore this neutral stack for now, and go with what we have, because I feel like we already have a lot of space units. We have a good curve, and things are built here. So right off the bat, just looking at the amount of cards for the aspects that we opened, plus a leader that I am drawn to, this is the deck that I would put together here for this pre-release sealed event if this were my pack. We didn't really open a ton of aggression stuff, sadly, even though we did get a lot of aggression leaders. So that would be something to consider as well, is if we did want to go for aggression, we would probably have to go with a cunning base or a command base, so either yellow or green, because of the limited aggression or the red cards that we have. So we would definitely want to be a little bit aware of that, but you could absolutely play any of these leaders. Major Von Reg is something that I would also consider here, because it is still villainy. So we do have a decent chunk of the villainy cards. We have a couple of we have a couple of aggression villainy cards, plus the plain villainy, so and aggression cards. So we could look at that. The other thing to consider is the epic action does let Major Von Reg come out when you have 4 resources. So it's a bit of a faster leader than Rio or some of the other options as well. So this is something that I would consider as well. But I would definitely have to, again, with the fewer amount of aggression cards that I opened in this pool, I would have to go with a cunning base or a command base to make sure that I actually had enough cards. And at that point, I probably would be playing these vulture droids for some additional cards and additional space units. So I hope that this was helpful, and that if you go to a pre-release event, you're kind of able to use this strategy and put together a deck. Let me know what you think of the piloting mechanic, and if you're going to go to a pre-release, what kind of leaders are you hoping to open? What are you hoping to be able to put together? And I hope that you have an absolute blast and an amazing time at any pre-release event that you do attend. Thank you so much for checking this video out, and I'll see you in the next one.